Welcome to episode 1 of the Mind Exhibit Humanities podcast. My name is Casey.
And my name is Dan.
And we are a father and daughter duo who study the humanities and are trying to share it with more people. And our first episode is about rituals, heroes, and scary monsters.
Now more than ever, we need to, get back in touch with our humanity.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get into episode 1. So the inspiration for this particular episode and why we're starting with it is because it starts at the very beginning. So as children, we have a bedtime, we go to school, we come home and we have a snack, we have these routines. Seasons are super exciting. We can't sleep on Christmas Eve because Santa's coming in the morning. And then that all changes once you realize that Santa, who represents the entrusted adult, does not actually physically exist. And that snaps. Those little bits of magic that you believe as a child start to fade away. And then as we get older, we are expected to fall gracefully into the rat race with the adults, who we come to understand are just children that forgot how to fly. And the monsters that accompany us in our adulthood are the same companions as the ones from our childhood, and they are our roommates and constant companions, but we don't really know how to understand them. We don't really get to know our monsters as kids because we don't go through those rituals of understanding what they are and what they represent. A ritual is not a routine. It's not a monotonous movement. Mm-hmm. It's a dance, and it opens a portal. And so to skip this vital step is to be jet-lagged by the many versions that you grow into, unable to integrate your happy thoughts that make you fly. I think just going into this is the first episode. What is your childhood monster? Do you remember having those fears? Was the monster in your closet? Was it under your bed? Was it a bully on the playground? I mean, it could be anything. Mm-hmm. And then, do these stay the same? Do they change? And what do we lose if we don't go through the rituals to get to know our monsters?
Mm-hmm. My scary monster was under my bed. And when I was very little, and then when I got older, my scary monster was bees. Swarms of bees, and I'd hide under my covers.
Oh, jeez.
Just trying to avoid these swarms, these hordes of bees that were trying to get at me.
Yikes. That sounds awful. And so, when did that shift? Do you remember? Do you have any sort of memory of when that shifted?
It shifted, it became more psychological, more shadow-based as I got older, more kind of geometric and less encapsulated in bees and scary, hairy monsters under my bed.
Right. Mm-hmm. And it became more of this uncontrollable thing, that kind of attacks you and leaves you suffocated. Mm-hmm. Yeah?
Yes.
It's similar to I was afraid of the dark as a kid, as you know. Mm-hmm. And there's still things that I do when I'm sleeping to protect myself. Those monsters don't go away.
Nope.
They really don't. And, even if your fears look different, they can be translated into a similar phenomenon,
Yeah, it's like an archaeological dig.
Totally.
You've got kind of these primitive versions, and then societies are built on top of the same spot, and you can kind of see this horizontal picture of the transformation of your monsters.
Right. So, as they change, the growing up process, how does this contrast with your childhood hero? Does your childhood hero have the same fears? Do they face your fears differently? Or do they have completely different fears?
Yeah, that's interesting. My my childhood heroes, one of them was like Johnny Appleseed.
Oh, cute.
I don't know why he appealed to me so much, but he kind of went off and explored the world and left behind seeds and these that grew into apple trees, and the apples from the apple trees kind of fed communities.
Yeah.
And but he was always a stranger, so I think that sense of kind of alienation from the communities that he was actually serving was something kind of foundational for me. That sense of feeling isolated and not quite fitting in.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Childhood heroes. I don't know if it's unique to me, but in the time that I grew up in the early 2000s and the 2010s, I don't really distinctly remember any specific childhood heroes outside of folklore. I don't really have one in folklore either, though. I don't really have a specific character that is a hero to me. And like I said, that could be unique to me or not. I think it really just depends on what your fears are. But I do think it's interesting that my biggest fear, being the dark, might translate into having no real understanding of what my heroes are. Maybe that but I think it's a good process, and the reason we're talking about this to start off the episode is to just allow you some time to think and reflect on what your monsters and heroes were, because as we go into the rest of the episode, going into ritual and into the things that we're going to discuss across the course of this entire podcast, it's important to understand where you come from, and so that you can understand where you're going.
I wonder if, we watched shows that were powerful.
Yeah.
And I wonder how much of some of these dynamics between the monsters and the heroes were externalized into these shows.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of my favorite movies growing up were Pixar movies, and there is a very good one called Monsters, Inc. And it's about, I feel like most people have seen it by now, but it's about these two monsters, and their job is to scare kids by hiding in their closets and coming out while they're asleep. And for them, it's just their daily job, But they also have fears and heroes of their own.
They do.
And so, what does that mean? What does that embody? And what is the ritual of going into the closet to scare the kid? These things are so universal. These universal truths echo across time and generations. Yeah.
And, it's funny you mentioned that movie, because I think we talked about I called it a Monsters, Inc. moment.
Oh, sure.
Because the epiphany at the end of the movie is they find out that laughing was more powerful than screams.
Oh, wow.
And we have kind of a society built on screams today.
Yeah, that's true.
And so how do we turn it into a society built on laughter and community and bringing joy?
Right.
Right now it's powered off of clicks and rage and
absolutely. And it's also in the film, the villains are actually the company owner, the CEO, and one of the top scarers or whatever, and they have to use this machine to get more scream out of the children, out of their victims, in order to gain more energy.
Yep.
And then laughter has this enormous effect. There's a scene where the little girl, Boo, laughs so hard that it causes an entire citywide blackout. And
the power just blows up the energy grid.
And so why would it be that, sure, you can say they're an evil villain, evil cartoon villain, but why do they need to keep using screams if laughter is so much more powerful? Is it hiding fear? There's so many different questions that you could ask.
And they change, it changes the relationship to their power source, which is these kids.
Right.
And it's almost like the process of, which we'll talk about, the shadow. And how do you integrate the shadow?
Yep.
And if the shadow is this external thing in which you're in conflict, And then all of a sudden, when it turns to laughter, you're in relationship to it in a different way.
Yeah, and I mean, they do continue the same rituals of going into the closet.
They do?
They just have a different, reason why they're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is why it's so important to understand it's not routine, it's not movement, it's a dance. It's a dance, and it contains a lot of magic. There is such a magic in being able to go about these processes.
And it often takes place in that liminal space.
Right.
And not to keep talking about the movie, but it's literally a door.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah. And they have this entire warehouse filled with other doors.
Mm-hmm.
So going into all of that,
Mm-hmm.
our title, Rituals, Heroes, and Scary Monsters. And the reason why I don't just say monsters and I say scary monsters is to bring about that idea of the childlike fear. You don't, when you're afraid of something as an adult, you don't say that's so scary.
Mm-hmm.
You would maybe say that about something that's a little bit, it's a little scary. But as a kid, you would say scary over, I'm frightened or something like that. And I think it's important to differentiate the monsters that we have as children versus adults. And so that's kind of why the title is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But let's go into heroes.
Okay.
There's a lot of foundation in these kinds of studies. Mythology is a huge part of humanities. And you can talk about it in so many different ways. But I think the best place to start is with Joseph Campbell.
Of course. Our friend. Our friend Joe.
Yes. I remember you telling me about him and his process as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because a lot of that stuck with me, but a lot of my understanding has also changed as I've gotten older.
Mm-hmm.
But the monomyth itself is such a great representative of the human experience of life.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And it's interesting that Joseph Campbell taught at a women's college.
Oh, he did?
For 30, 40 years.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And so he, every day, the hero tends to be a male. But actually so much of his own teaching experience was teaching women, young women, who were, at that time, had few choices in life in terms of their life journey. But yet this amazing, rich tapestry of mythology came out of that experience. And he always talked about the female energy as being kind of the ground of energy for this. It's really the animating tapestry in which kind of this hero's journey unfolds. Yeah.
I love that. The tapestry. Yep. It's woven together. It's created as you go. And then I think, I haven't read it, but there was a book about the heroine's journey.
Yes.
And I'm failing to remember the name of the author. But I'd love to go into that at some point too. I mean, there really doesn't have to be too stark of a contrast.
No.
But in some ways there are. And I think both of those energies are just as important for all people, no matter what gender you are, because we all have the masculine and the feminine inside of us.
Yes.
And having, some relationship to both of those anima and animus regarding the archetypes of Jung.
Yep. I think that's one of the great things that Jung's work brings out is it is this dynamic. So you may be a male, you may be a female, but there's a dynamic between those kinds of psychic impulses that both bring.
Right.
And you have to have, to find kind of this integration point, as Jung talks about it, there needs to be this dynamic kind of balance, equilibrium between them.
Yes.
And that's no easy task.
No. I mean, if you think about it, when you dream, if you do pay attention to those things, sometimes you'll dream about someone of the opposite gender or sex, and they are someone that you don't really necessarily know, or maybe someone that you don't really think about during the day, but they might represent the opposite gender or sex within your psychological stage. And that is just as monstrous as your fears or your shadow self or your golden shadow. I mean, those pieces all come together to form how you interact with the world, how you interact with others, how you interact with yourself.
Yeah, it's very true. It's almost like this star that you try to follow this star in terms of this relationship.
Right.
Dante in the Inferno had Beatrice, which was his muse, his guide, his inspiration. I know for myself, I had my own Beatrice, and I was aware early on that it wasn't this person in real life, that this person that I knew as a child became kind of that anima in my psychology. And even though I knew that and I named that early, it never, even to this day, depleted the power of that. It still exists.
Because it is powerful, because it's important to, trust that power, to have some sort of impact, whether that be positive or negative, but to hone in that power, to make friends with it.
Yes.
That is what we must do, not only with the anima or the animus, but also our monsters and different archetypes within ourselves, because you can see it on screen externally in a film or in a book or whatever, but you also have that internally on your own conscious stage.
100%. And I think about, Nietzsche talked about slay the dragon of thou shalt. But one of the more interesting things in slaying the dragon is making the dragon your friend.
Yeah. And that reminds me, we were talking about this yesterday while we were walking on the beach about sticky hair. Yes. And Prince's 5 weapons.
Correct.
And I'm trying to remember what culture that story came out of.
It was an Indian Buddhist story.
Okay, got it. Yep. Yep. Yeah, can you remind me how that story goes?
Yeah, Sticky Hair was a monster, and everything stuck to him. And so he was impervious to weapons because they would just stick to his long sticky hair. And you had a Buddhist warrior. Sure. And he had 5 weapons of the day, bow and arrow, a sword, and whatever the weapons were.
Sure. And
he expelled all 5 of his weapons into Sticky Hair, and they all stuck to him. And then he stuck his hand, his right hand, his left hand, his right leg, his left, so he's completely stuck on Sticky Hair. And then he says to Sticky Hair, I have a special weapon that is my inner peace. And he maintains this calm, and he said, if you were to swallow my inner peace, you would explode. And Sticky Hair is frightened by this equanimity that he brings to this perilous situation, and lets him go.
Wow. And so that just goes to show, I mean, if you're able to confront your monster, doesn't mean fight it. It means knowing that you are more powerful in your hero self as your monsters.
He became kind of the still point upon which this activity happened. And that still point was the more powerful.
Right, yeah. So when I say again, rituals are a dance, what does that mean for the choreography of becoming human, and not just the birth and death and middle life sequence, but also the in between? So, from youth to being a young adult and those kinds of things. And I guess, what kinds of things do we have now that we would consider rituals versus, when you were my age versus in the old times, in the myths?
Well, first, I really like that phrase of choreography of becoming human. I think that's really nice. And it is a dance, right? And it is a choreographed dance. And, as Alan Watts says, it's not about doing it fast.
Yeah.
It's about being in the dance, being deliberate about the dance, being awake to the dance. And I think, a lot of that has been lost because the choreographers that provided kind of the structure for this have lost their power today.
Who are they?
Who are they? What are the institutions that used to provide that? I mean, we still have marriage rituals and we still have communion, education,
yes.
some of those things, but they don't have the same psychological impact.
Right,
I
and
think.
it was just Christmas and New Year's. It was just the holiday season, and the large extension of it into such earlier months of the year, and the kind of obligatory rituals of Christmas time, the tree, and those kinds of things. I mean, they start to lose their meaning when we don't really understand what the dance really represents.
Yes.
We can still dance and do the choreography, but in ballet, when a teacher is giving you the choreography for a combination, so when you're doing class, they say full out, which is doing the full dance and really actually feeling it and smiling and all of those things, or there's marking it, which is, people use their hands to simulate the leg movements, or just kind of going through it without really being engaged in the actual movements themselves, because they should mean something. Otherwise, what's the point?
Right. And, I mean, let's face it, our rituals have become commercialized.
Absolutely, yeah.
And not serving that purpose. And even who are those, who represents adults, fully formed adults today?
I don't see many, to be honest with you.
No.
Dad. Not you, but, just in general, it's crazy. I mean, I could tell you stories about working in the service industry alone, working at coffee shops. It's just, no one really understands what we're supposed to do anymore. Whose fault is that? I mean, is it something that we can assert blame to? Or have we lost the idea of what the choreography is supposed to represent?
Yeah, I think that's a super powerful question. I mean, when I was first wrestling with this and reading, all of Joseph Campbell's stuff, he acknowledged this, and this is in the mid '80s, early mid '80s. He said that they don't have our myths don't have the same psychological impact. We don't have the choreography kind of stitched into our lives like they once were.
Right.
And that's not a bad thing. I mean, all the historical traditions talk about epics, and there's an epic of destruction, and then new things have to be born. And he offered this image of the Earth from space as the new mandala, right? The new mandala. He said, we need to become as a whole humanity on this planet. Like, this should be our new mandala. But you can't have someone say that.
Right. No.
You need the dance that creates a relationship with that.
Yes.
And that actually becomes powerful and important to someone's life. And so far that's not worked as a mandala.
Well, and we all need to be in on it too.
We do.
Which brings me to another story that we repeatedly talk about, the Aborigine tribe of the young men. So there's, and you've told this so many times to me, so I'm hoping I can get it right.
I think you can.
But basically, the entire village is in on this ritual, this secret ritual. And it affects all of the young men in the village. And the mothers are in on it, the adults all of the adults are in on it. The young boys are kidnapped from their homes, and their moms are crying and, trying to fight back, but the boys are kidnapped by the adults in the village wearing these terrifying masks. Yes. And they are brought out into the forest, and basically violence ensues, and it is a test to the young men how they would react to these kinds of large threats. And once they pass, they are then indoctrinated into their manhood. And it sounds absolutely, I mean, I can't even imagine the kids of today, going from their iPads to the middle of the forest and being sometimes even re-circumcised or
It
whatever.
Was it was ritual circumcision.
It was ritual. It was ritual violence.
Right.
It was violence,
but constructive to.
Absolutely, and it doesn't need to be that physically violent anymore necessarily, because we don't really live in the physical world as much as we used to, which is neither here nor there. Just kind of is the way it is. But those kinds of processes are not as powerful if we don't actually believe that they're real.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And we see this take many forms. I mean, from the Mayans where you did ritual sacrifice, and of course in Christianity you have communion, where we say this is the body of Christ, this is the blood of Christ. Yep. And so there is this kind of ritualized violence, but it's symbolic of this kind of rebirth.
Absolutely. So
there's that.
I guess this is a great question that I wrote down before the podcast, but is adulthood missing ritual, or have we just forgotten to sanctify our own actions? I want to hear what you have to say first.
Well, I don't think there's any question, at least in my mind, that we don't have the rituals.
I agree.
That we once did. I mean, we were at a coffee shop and listening to, a charming young couple talk about their wedding. And it had nothing to do with relationship. It had to do with the resort they stayed at. It had to do with everything, Instagram ready. And not this ritualized experience of two people coming together in a community.
Yeah.
And where was that
in
the
conversation?
See that anymore.
You don't see it. That's
you see
why
a picture of a buffet.
Absolutely. And I mean, a lot of the times those events, I live in Los Angeles, and so I have a lot of friends that go to those kinds of events. They don't even eat the food. The food is there for presentation. And all of that just goes to show there is nothing left to sanctify. Things, whether you practice religion or not, nothing feels sacred anymore, because there is no true meaning behind, a meal together, or marriage, or a graduation ceremony. I mean, a lot of people that graduate from college don't even get a job right out of college, and that's what the purpose of that crucial step of education is. People are stuck with student loans to pay off for the rest of their lives. When we mourn, when there's funerals, I mean, we wear black, but do we remember why? And, people don't wear black. I mean, everything, it doesn't have to be so dramatic, but without the drama, without the actual play, the, performance of everything, the choreography, the dance, does it really mean as much as it used to?
And the point of it is to bring your life in harmony with kind of the greater rhythms of life.
Exactly.
And so if we think about influencers, what are they trying to bring us in harmony with? Envy. I wish I had their life. I wish I had that shirt.
Yeah.
I wish I was in Bali. And they're bringing us in disharmony with our own life.
Isn't that insane? I mean, if you really think about, the sponsorships and stuff, they're trying to make you envious because they want you to buy something.
That's it.
I mean, we both love Mad Men.
We do.
And I forget what he says, but happiness is to sell you more happiness.
Love was just a word created by us to sell more nylon.
Exactly. And it's so true. I mean, really, the things that, and in that TV show as well, I mean, Don has completely created his own persona.
Yes.
Separate from who he actually is. He changes his name. He fakes his own identity. And he has the perfect wife and 2.5 kids, house in the suburbs. But he continuously has extramarital affairs and is an alcoholic and has so many secrets and lies that they start to spill out of his writing desk at home.
Yeah, there's this scene where Kodak comes in, and it's that slide.
Yeah, the wheel.
The wheel. And that is one of the most powerful scenes. I've watched it 50 times.
Oh, absolutely.
And of course, he's going through, his marriage is crumbling, and he's presenting as theater this perfect Draper home with he and his wife Betty and with his children, and it presents itself as love and harmony and, family that we all idolize. But the reality was something completely different.
Absolutely.
But of course, everybody in the room cries.
Right, because he is creating the feeling of nostalgia without even feeling it himself in the making.
He seemed to be a master at creating that while he lived in this kind of volcanic chaos underneath.
Absolutely. That he created because for him, that meant that he could control the outcomes. And I think that's another thing about, tying this all back together. Ritual allows you some semblance of control without you having to micromanage and manipulate the people in your life to fit the fantasy. It is something that is written in each step that you take, something that you do because it makes you actually feel like you're moving forward or up or into the next phase of your life.
I think that's a really strong point, because we feel chaos in our life. We feel torn in, 1,000 different directions. And I think you're exactly right. It is about coming in reharmonizing on your life path.
Absolutely.
In this next constructive phase.
Yeah.
And then also, not just for yourself, but in relationship to your family and others in the community.
Absolutely. And then how does that tie into the hero's journey? So the hero's journey as the life path, it has different steps that you take. The hero doesn't know what he's going to do, but the steps kind of present themselves on the path. How does this play out as a form of, this is a dramatic reenactment of things that we already know, they're either intrinsic or told to us, but we do feel them. Where does rehearsal fit into all of this?
That's interesting. The first thing I'm kind of struck with about that, particularly as we know that many young men today are really struggling. And when you look at the hero's journey across cultures and time, it was a very external journey. It was a physical journey that had, psychological impact. And today we live largely in a digital world,
right.
particularly young men.
Yes.
And even a job, like how can you be on a hero's journey on a laptop?
In your bedroom.
In your bedroom, on a phone.
Yeah.
Like that's not the externalization of that powerful journey. And, you said rehearsal. And I think oftentimes before the call to adventure was this rehearsal phase. They learned something.
But they didn't realize that they were rehearsing for anything.
They didn't.
Because they knew they had this intuitive, preparation instilled upon them by the world around them because of this, normalization of ritual being part of life.
Yes.
As opposed to something that you have to simulate or create or post about, whatever.
Right. I think one of the most amusing transformations of rehearsal into kind of ritual engagement was in Karate Kid.
Oh, sure.
Wax the car,
wax on,
paint the fence.
Yep.
And then, there's that moment like, I'm sick of this.
Yeah.
And there's that moment where he says, paint the fence. Blocks it. And all of a sudden rehearsal turns into engagement with the world.
Right. Yeah. And how is that? And I mean, not all of us are studying karate under a kung fu master.
No.
But is part of the decay of ritual and not acquainting with our monsters, is that something that maybe we are experiencing on purpose?
I think that we have not gone through the destruction of the old systems. I mean, the educational system was designed in the 1900s for very specific things. I mean, higher education was to be, mainly to be a reverend, a pastor, and sometimes of the law, but even the law or medicine, some of those highly specialized things. And so we have an educational system that really is more about rote memorization and representation of that material, rather than creative thinking, intuition, problem solving. So it ritualizes a past that's kind of stuck in amber.
Sure.
And we need to break it apart and come up with new systems, new institutions. I mean, we're at that point.
Yeah. So when it comes to those kinds of rituals that are from the past, how does that relate to our individual past, so our monsters and the things that we internalize, the things that we are afraid of, and how does that keep us maybe subservient to these processes instead of breaking down the old systems?
Society really has fetishized our monsters in service of an economic model.
Sure.
And an economic model that, written into it, benefits a few. We
can see that plainly.
You can see that plainly, and it's baked into the law, right? I mean, corporations are in the law. Their fiduciary duty is to create shareholder wealth, not to create better products that serve people better. That's just something that they have to do if it creates shareholder wealth.
Right.
So I think we've got a system that's become misaligned to the experience of being a human. And I talk about that and the difference between the teleology, the purpose of our institutions or our systems, and the teleonomy, which is the way that they're actually architected.
Interesting.
And so we have a wide gap, a wide variance between that, and it's not anyone's fault. People take advantage of that, but they're supposed to, according to the rules of the system.
Exactly. Yeah, it does weaken us to make us, to keep our shadows external, to not sew them to our feet. And I keep using Peter Pan metaphors because it is so true to, knowing what it's like to be a child and then growing up. And then I also am reminded of, I keep thinking about this movie, but It's a Wonderful Life. We watch it every year, at least once around Christmas time. And there's this scene near the beginning of the movie where George, his father, has just passed away.
Yeah.
And there's a board meeting, and Mr. Potter is there, and they are arguing about what makes people worthy of bank loans. And it's something really simple.
Yes.
But Mr. Potter believes that George says people are cattle to him. They are just pawns in his game. And George is talking about a loan that he gave to his friend Ernie, who was the cab driver in the town. And, he probably doesn't have a lot of money, but giving him a loan to build a home makes him a better citizen. It makes him a better customer. It makes him a better member of the community. And it actually keeps him out of Potter's slums.
Yes.
And then as the movie progresses, George does continue to do those things, and it might take a huge toll on him individually, but in the larger scale of the community, it makes everyone else benefit so much more, to the point where at the end, George becomes the richest man in town because he has earned the respect of everyone in the community by doing the right thing.
And I think one of the really powerful things about that movie is that George, as a child, thinks the hero's journey is out there.
Yeah.
It's out there. And what he discovers in that moment is that he's been on the hero's journey right there in Bedford Falls.
Yes. Yeah. It's such a great film. I mean, oh my gosh. Of course it wasn't commercially successful when it first came out.
Of course not. But it lives on.
Yes.
Because it's a story well told.
Yes.
And, even the economic lessons and the community lessons are as pertinent today as they were then.
So what are the monsters now? I mean, when I think about it, it's less your fears and more willing unknowns.
Mm-hmm.
Let me explain that a little bit. Being angry about external things, making a bad decision because of a fleeting feeling, doing something that you know is the wrong thing to do for your own self or for someone in your life that means something to you, but doing it because it's the easier thing to do. I mean, your monster does take control and drive if you don't learn how to integrate it. And that is really hard to do,
Mm-hmm.
but it makes it so much easier if we have institutions where we're able to get to know our monsters. I mean, we used to be able to do that, in religion.
Mm-hmm.
We used to. Confessions in Catholicism,
Mm-hmm.
those things are built into the mythology and the symbolism of religion.
Again, this is what Campbell talked about at length, that the software, if you think about a religious system or a mythological system as software that runs on the human hardware.
Right.
He said they all work.
Mm-hmm.
That was Campbell's point. He talked about a four-sided pyramid. He said, you can climb to the top of that pyramid through any face, any of the four faces.
Sure.
They all take you to that point of relationship with, existence and,
Yeah.
whatever that higher thing is. That's also the thing that we're all grounded in. So I think we don't have effective software today for the ritualized experience of dealing with monsters. We quite the opposite celebrate the Peter Pan, the man-child.
Yeah, we do.
The man-child
I know exactly what you're talking about.
are the most wealthy people on the planet today are the Peter Pan types.
And so I think for a lot of people that agree with you, and some people don't, and that might be a different worldview,
Mm-hmm.
and that's okay. But for those of us that do agree with that point of view, how can we move from anger to actually making some sort of a difference by, not putting those people on a pedestal? That's a first step. But is hatred the next step? I don't think so. I mean, the most powerful tool that we have is what Prince 5 Weapons has
That's where I was
against
going too.
Sticky Fingers.
Yes.
That internal trust of yourself, of your inner peace, to know that anything that someone that you disagree with or someone that is trying to come at you, trying to bother you, to know that it won't affect you.
Yes. I think finding that still place in yourself, and I think that's such a great story about that, because the world is sticky hair, right?
Yeah.
You stick to it. And I think finding that equanimity within yourself and living your journey on your own 2 feet. We're kind of stuck all creating our own hero's journey because we don't have that operating software.
Right.
And that's a burden, and most people don't want to do that. It's a lot of
We
work.
shouldn't have to necessarily.
Well, there's a few of us that will enter the forest at the thickest point, as the Arthurian legends talk about,
Sure.
and take on that journey. But many of us won't.
Yeah.
And there ought to be the supporting structures that help them do that. And that's where Campbell talked about the artists and the creatives.
Yeah.
And so how do we support those voices? Your voice as a young creative. To
Your
start
voice.
retelling these stories
Yes.
in our current ethnic garb.
Right. Which is whatever you have in your closet. How do we reteach ourselves how to fly? So the Peter Pan myth, the man-child, we do have to sow our shadows to our feet.
Yes.
We do have to remember to think happy thoughts and fly on our own. We do have to go back to reality at some point. We can't stay in Neverland. And by being a Captain Hook, by fighting against Peter Pan, you are refusing to live your own life. So how can we teach ourselves how to fly again? How can we continue to make rituals outside of the economic system, because I think a lot of rituals now are the whole self-care is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and does that really, meditation, I don't know. I mean, what is the answer?
Oh, well,
Do you have the answer?
Are you ready? No. I mean, the answers have, I think, been true across millennium, right? And, being present to your own life, truly being present to your own life. I think of the Robin Williams version of Peter Pan.
Oh, yeah.
And, he's an older man now. I think he might be a lawyer, and he's got a cell phone. It's the pre-smartphone era, and he's always on his phone. And and then he forgot how to fly. Like, he's like many of us. We're distracted by all that's going on in our life. And how do you kind of reground yourself in that? One of my favorite books and movies is The Razor's Edge.
Great book.
Yep. And there's the Bill Murray version, as opposed to the Tyrone Power version. There's a scene where Bill Murray is with this Indian character, and they're washing dishes in the water. And he's saying, when you wash dishes, wash dishes. And Bill Murray, of course, is funny about it, but he's, I feel it. Yeah, But it is, how do you be present in the moment and present to your own life and be connected to what you're doing and to other people? And that is the journey. That is the hero's journey.
I love that. That's perfect. And another thing too, collecting soul moments as you go, as opposed to physical assets, which sounds so silly. I mean, of course, money doesn't buy happiness. But truly, rich, poor, however, we understand that most of us do, that the most rich financially in our society are definitely the least rich spiritually, because they don't value picking up, good deeds and presence.
Yeah, I mean, the Bible talks about it's easier for the camel to pass through the eye of a needle than a rich man to enter the gates of heaven. I always struggled with that as a verse. But there's so much distraction to being present. It's not evil or anything like that, or something inherently wrong with wealth necessarily, except if it distracts you from you and it's your relationship.
Versus integration. Conquest versus integration. Continue, and I think that goes back to, as well, the anima versus the animus. And in archetypes in film, the animus is the shapeshifter. So the love interest is often a reflection and a counter-reflection of the main character, and how that relates to being your monster. And, the male approach would be conquest versus the female approach would be, integration. And how can you put two, because you need both. You absolutely need both. And I think that helps a lot to integrate the shadow versions of yourself by understanding the opposites and the equals.
And that's where the power is. The power that propels you in your life is in those darker places. Nietzsche talked about the Apollonian, which is reason and logic and stuff, versus the Dionysian, and that's the chaos. But it's a chaos. It's a dance of chaos.
Sure.
And how do you bring them in kind of ritual balance?
Right.
And that's not easy. And so people tend to go off into one or the other, and they inevitably breaks. You need both in dynamic relationship.
Yes.
It's the yin yang,
yes.
right? Of that.
Yes. Similarly, to build a fire, you need 3 ingredients, and they need to all work together. You need oxygen, fuel, and heat.
Yes.
I mean, you know this. You're the fire expert.
Yeah, and I'm fascinated by that, and I think it is a good analogy when you start a campfire. You're starting with one set of materials. A little kindling and a dry leaf and some stuff and a small flame, and then you adjust the fire per what you're trying to do. If you're cooking something or just lighting up the night sky, those are different activities, and you have to be very present to that.
Yeah.
So it is a ritual, I think, and it's one of the reasons every house I've had has been a gas fireplace, and I've hated that because turning a switch,
it's safer.
It's safer. It's more convenient, but it loses all the ritual experience for me of actually building a fire, going through that process.
Yeah, great metaphor. Seriously.
One other thing I wanted to say about spaces. Some of the wealthiest I've ever felt in terms of space was not at an ocean view place, but it was at our primitive cabin in northern Minnesota, where the aesthetic was just right. The music was right, the lighting was right, and it was nothing expensive, quite the opposite.
Yeah.
But we were present in the moment together.
Yes.
And that was a wealth that you can't recreate out of a showroom.
Absolutely. Because it sticks with you for so much longer. It integrates itself into your own psychological myth, those moments, those pieces. And that's what keeps us going on,
Yes.
Well, I think this has been a great first episode, if I do say so myself. I'd like to leave you with a challenge, and you are more than welcome to participate or not, or just think about it, write it down, whatever works for you. Which of your childhood myths still lives in you? And in your life now, whether you're a teenager or a young adult, and whatever age you are, how will you choose to honor that? And if this question resonates with you, definitely let us know what you think. If you want to write down a different question, share that as well. The whole point of this conversation, this course-long conversation, is to have a conversation. Please join us, talk with us, think, play. And we will see you next time for episode 2.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
That was fun. It's like our normal conversation.
I know.